welcome to another episode of Senior Spot. My name is Jenn Quinn, and I'm your host today, and I am so very thrilled to have Naomi Prendergast, who is the woman that makes everything happen at Deauville in Lowell, and we are very pleased to be able to have her here at the show today. Thank you for being a guest, Naomi.
Thanks, Jen. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, I am a big fan of Deauville life and wellness community because it really is a full community. And I know that a lot of our viewers and the audience will relate to one or a few parts of the facilities that you have there. But before we get into learning about all of that, I would love to hear the history of Deauville, and because I think it's fascinating, and I'd love to just hear that.
Thanks very much. Deauville has an incredible story to tell. Back in the late 1950s, the Sisters of Charity of Ottawa, which still are around, and they're a very dynamic group of women, they realized that elder care was going to need a hand. And this was not popular back then. If you think back to the late 50s, there was no such thing as Medicare. There was no such thing as Medicaid. But they knew that they needed to help the community solve the problem of where elders might live if there were not adequate family supports. So they got together with some businessmen in the area, and they were fortunate enough to purchase a beautiful lot of land, 75 acres on Varnum Avenue, heading down towards the Tingsboro area. We abut the state forest, and they procured that land and they built Deauville Manor. That was a nursing home, still is, although now it's called Deauville Senior Care, and it's grown quite a bit, but the audacity of those women to do what they did, I think, is just really inspirational.
They were true pioneers to be able to have the foresight to even see that this was going to be a big need, and I imagine those that started it and procured the land would never have imagined how incredible it would become and the impact that they would have on so many lives at so many different levels of care.
Exactly, and back then in a nursing home, it was really what we might even call an assisted living today. We actually had a couples wing where couples would move in together, and many of them had automobiles, and they would just decide, it's time for us to give up our household. We'll move to Deauville Manor.
Okay.
Of course, today, it's very different.
Right, absolutely, very, very different. And amongst it, I would imagine that, and I believe the last time that I checked, that at least a few of the sisters were still at Deauville. Is that correct?
Absolutely. We are still sponsored by the Sisters of Charity of Ottawa. Their numbers have diminished quite a lot since we opened initially in 1960, of course.
Right.
But we do have several who are very active. And in fact, we have one who on every Thursday actually hands out the paychecks because we want to remind our staff who we are and why we're here, because our mission is front and center at everything that we do.
Well, and that is absolutely true. You as the president and CEO, I know I have seen you personally do things and heard stories from your staff of how you're so involved and you're front and center. When I went and met with you a few weeks back, had the pleasure of talking to the receptionist, and she made a comment that anytime you walk through the lobby, you're looking, you're observing things, you're maybe straightening something out, talking to people. You know who the residents are, you know who the employees are. That is so important, and that is very rare. And I know personally, when I was in the office with you, there was a torrential downpour. And what did you do? You offered me your umbrella. So you are exactly the type of leader that a place that has this mission needed, which is just fantastic. So 75 acres. Okay.
Right.
So I imagine we've expanded beyond what now is the senior care, which was Deauville Manor. So what else do you have on these 75 acres?
Well, we don't take up all of the 75 acres.
Oh, okay.
And I'll ...
Yeah,
leave that.
I can say that's a follow-up question.
But we do occupy probably over a third of it. We have Deauville Senior Care, which is our 208-bed skilled nursing center. And that is one of the largest nursing homes in the state. In those 208 beds, we have 84 beds reserved for special care dementia. We do quite a lot of short-term rehabilitation, so people coming in who may have had a knee replacement or some other type of surgery or an illness and then are going back home.
And they come home with such great success, and I know that for sure because we've had a number of clients of ours need to go in and they come back home and they are in great shape.
Actually, believe it or not, about 85% of all of our admissions go back home.
Which is typically what their goal is and what your mission is and what your goal is.
Exactly. And then we also have traditional long-term care as well in that building. We also have a second skilled nursing facility which opened just 4 years ago. That is the Deauville Center for Advanced Therapy. It's the state's only freestanding skilled nursing facility that operates only for short-term rehab.
Right, and so that, I mean, the difference there is that the goal is that it is, like you said, short-term. And when people go in and they have surgeries, I know that they're not always thinking that they may need to have that. And I'm usually educating people prior to a scheduled surgery, not so much an emergency surgery, but a scheduled surgery that likely that's going to take place. And so being able to go into that wellness center, it is short term. So when you describe short term, what would you say is short term?
Typically it's 10 days to 14 days, but sometimes it's much shorter than that. But everybody there is there for short-term rehab. And so the atmosphere is really where healthcare and spa come together.
It is absolutely beautiful. I mean, I go in there and I think I've never seen such a beautiful facility. It makes you not want to leave. You might not work as hard because you might like it there. But you walk in and you can tell that, you know, everyone there is involved in the same goal of having people recover quickly. You know, there's really no downtime. I don't ever see people really at the nurses' station, just simply because everyone's very active.
They are. We keep them very busy with their rehab and their recuperation. And then in addition to those two skilled nursing facilities, we also offer housing, several housing options on our campus.
Okay.
Briere Gardens is 63 affordable independent apartments for seniors. It's a HUD 202 is the model. And so the admission is restricted by the HUD requirements, meaning that somebody has to be at least age 62 or the head of household. There can be up to 2 people in an apartment. They're all one-bedroom apartments. And each head of household must be at least age 62. And then there are income restrictions that are set by the government, by HUD.
So how would one go about maybe applying for that?
That they would come over to Briere Gardens and fill out an application.
Okay.
Actually, the wait list currently is frozen.
That was my next question, because it's such a popular place because of all of the offerings there, that the wait list is frozen. I don't think I've ever heard that term. That's, I mean, that really means the wait list is long.
It is. And so annually what we do is we make sure that everybody who's on the wait list still wants to be on the wait list, and then we determine, is it time to open the wait list again. But we were just delighted to open up Briere Gardens. First phase was in 2006, and the second phase opened in 2009. So we now have those 63 independent apartments. They have a full kitchen, each apartment. So those seniors are very independent.
Yes. And you can, as I've walked through the halls, it's very clear, you know, that those it's like living in an apartment complex, you know, versus more of an assisted living feel.
That's right, but still there's a sense of community, and it's a very safe and secure environment.
I love how that there's some common areas, even obviously outside of their own individual apartments, common areas with couches and fireplaces, and I see people gathering there, and just really it is a nice sense of community.
It is, it is. Then we have the Saab Residence, which opened just last fall. The Saab Residence is a very innovative type of place for elders to live. We were answering a call from the community to come up with a way to give supportive housing or assisted living to individuals who could not afford to pay market rate. And so this was something we took very seriously because, again, we're a mission-based organization. We're all about identifying needs of the community and figuring out ways to meet it. So since we happen to have land available, I love those 75 acres.
Yeah. Oh, I remember when, before the ground broke there, I remember thinking, oh my goodness, this is just amazing. And you don't realize how much land there is because you see, you see the trees. You just don't know where it ends.
Right, exactly. So we did not have to purchase land. And that made the building of that residence doable with the help of a capital campaign. It was our first ever capital campaign, but we did raise over $8 million. And now we have 60 apartments at the Saab Residence. 45 of those are not assisted living. We ended up shaking up the model a little bit just to have a little bit more flexibility.
Sure.
But there were 45.
Because there are so many different levels of need. It's very hard to kind of put yourself in one of the boxes, or buckets, you might say. So if it's that in between that you answered the call and the need for that.
We did, and our board of directors in particular, we have a wonderful community board of directors, but they were very receptive to listening to how the model might work best for most people.
Sure.
And so 45 of the apartments are independent apartments, but what makes it different from Brea Gardens is that instead of having a full kitchen, each apartment has a small kitchenette because there's a dining room with 3 wonderful meals a day.
And they are wonderful because I was invited to have lunch there with some of the ladies, with Bev and with Kelly and some of the ladies, and delicious. I mean, if you're going to be having 3 meals a day, sometimes people are like, oh, the food's going to be terrible, and that's important to people.
It's very important
it's very
to people.
Important. So that's, I can attest to the fact that it was delicious.
It was very, very delicious. And so of those 45 apartments, 15 are for people who can pay market rate, but 15 are for people who are low income, 15 are for people of moderate income. So really we can offer apartments to people of all income levels.
You really have developed the different steps in terms of, like, there's not a falling through the cracks, so to say. I was in education for 20 years before this, and there was always that, well, if a child doesn't fit a certain model, then you might fall through the cracks. You have found a way to be able to give even more incremental steps in the level of care and the affordability. That's the key. We have different levels of affordability. Some people will have, assets but not have a cash flow. The old expression of house rich, cash poor.
Yes.
So what do you do with that? And to be able to develop the different levels for income as well as care is really a 2-pronged way of meeting what the needs are.
It is important, and also that blend of income and assets, and it is a blend that we use to determine what somebody's rent will be.
Sure.
But that changes over time.
It certainly does.
Things happen, and so the assets may erode or the income may go up or down a little bit. And so annually we do a recertification to see what somebody's rent might be. So somebody might move in at market rate and then a couple of years later be at a different rate. And
well, I'm going to say a different rate. You're meaning maybe a lower rate.
Lower rate, correct.
And they're not asked to leave, and they're not right.
Right, their apartment does not change, and this is key because this, I think, points again to our mission and that feeling of respect. The only people who know who's paying what are our business office. We do not have apartments that are, let's say, quote, a low rent district.
And that's really important as you look at the way, not for seniors in this model, but if you look at the way that that's done in, in the rest of, the country, it is obvious. And, that is a very respectful way of being able to age in place and to be able to meet their needs and not have people know their personal business.
That's right. And then in addition to those 45 supportive housing apartments, the Saab Residence also has 15 memory care assisted living apartments. Those are certified assisted living. They are all at market rate. And they're studio apartments that are built around a lovely central open concept environment.
It is. It's beautiful, and it has, a nice loop if people want to be able to walk a loop. And the way that the building is built, I love how it kind of goes off in different wings, and makes it, it's a very nice, quiet, lovely environment. I walked in there and I thought, when can I sign up? Is it too soon to sign up? I'm 44.
Yes, Jen, it's good news. It's too soon for you to sign up.
But the wait list is frozen, so maybe not.
No, that's right. Bria Gardens,
Yes.
not the
But that might be
the
my
Saab
first
Residence.
step.
That's right. And then in addition to the housing, we have our Adult Day Health Program as well, which is the Greater Lowell area's longest running adult day program. We started back in the mid-70s.
So again, that's an innovative first type of, program. I mean, going back that many years, adult days, are starting to pop up now because of the need. But really, the model, you put it in place before it became something that's more mainstream, and certainly evolved through the different changes that you need. But I am amazed when I drive by and I see all of the transportation vans and all of those different other services that you're really coordinating even above and beyond just having someone come to a program, because you're making it possible for people to have the transportation there and the coordination, and that's a big concern for a lot of families. So the Adult Day program, that is just, I love that you shared how long it's been, it's been going.
Thank you.
Because they know what they're doing.
So those are the Deauville services. However, we also have 2 long-term tenants on our campus, which is also very exciting. Health South New England Rehab Hospital joined us in 2012. They have a 22-bed inpatient acute rehab center that is on our campus, and also Summit Elder Care, which is the Fallon Health PACE program, joined us just this spring. So by having those collaborations, we're able to further meet the needs of people in the community beyond what Deauville itself does.
And it's amazing that those partners and that collaboration, because it really does, it makes it so much easier for people to be able to understand the resources that are available. Really one-stop shopping,
Exactly.
so to say,
Right.
one-stop shopping, and knowing that, everyone in the different departments or the different areas, the different living arrangements, all understand the function of what one another are doing, so therefore can make the right suggestions, even to stay within the same system, which is very comforting to a lot of people, to be able to not have to leave the campus, or you go have a hospitalization and maybe you're at Lowell General and you need to go to rehab, and you can't go back to Bria Gardens. How comforting to be able to go to, the short-term rehab, whether it be the wellness or whether it be in the senior care center.
Yes, and we see that all the time. There's movement with individuals who are enjoying services on one location on our campus, that as their needs change, they migrate to a different level of care on the campus, either on a short-term basis or on a long-term basis.
Well, and I think
happens all the time.
Yes, and that is comforting, because when you make a big change, like anybody, no matter what age you are, making a change, usually you meet with hesitation, but a change like this, there's already the trust, there's already the idea that their best interest is what is being considered. So that makes a big difference, and it's scary to be making these changes. So it's that sense of relief, I think, that is provided right there at Deauville. So over the time frame, and I mean, going from having Deauville Manor to having all of these other amazing facilities that you offer, different levels of care, and you have 75 acres, and you're only using a third of it. It just amazes me, because it makes me think that even more wonderful things are to come. But I'm sure after the capital campaign for Saab, it's time to maybe just look at different programs, different activities, and things that you want to focus on. So could you share some of the future things, or things that are kind of on the table right now for Deauville?
Sure, because you're absolutely correct, Jen. The construction that we've had, that period has been wonderful, but right now, according to our strategic plan, it's time to look really into ourselves to see programmatically how can we tweak the existing programs, add on existing programs, and to see where there are synergies between programs so that we can leverage what we're already doing into something greater than what we already have without additional bricks and mortar.
Exactly.
Right.
At this point.
At this
point.
moment, correct.
So,
So
you know, and obviously healthcare is changing too, constantly. And the future of it, and what are you doing? And clearly you're on the cutting edge at every sort of phase. It's clear. And these sisters had the vision back all those years ago that something along these lines is going to need to happen and change. So with senior care and having it change, your organization, you know, how do you see it evolving in the next even 5 to 10 years? I mean, you know, we look at the population right now and the aging population, and we know that we're going to have quite a few years of people that are needing care like this. So how do you see Deauville evolving into those kind of future needs?
Yep. Well, the trend is already that people are staying at home whenever they can.
Yes, I love that idea personally.
Of course you do. But you know what? Everybody loves it, and everybody should love it. And as a nursing home operator, I'm the first one to say people would prefer to be at home.
Sure.
And anybody who can be at home should be at home. But historically, there's always some people who can't be.
Absolutely.
But
and
what we've
it's
been...
very important for people to be forthcoming when they can't be. That's something that is one of my missions, is to make sure that if someone is not in an appropriate setting, you find and help to locate the proper setting.
Exactly, which is why, as I mentioned earlier, about 85% of our nursing home admissions go back home. But what's changing is that people who would come to rehab for a short stay, some of those folks are bypassing the rehab and going directly home. Now, I think that's much more apt to happen with people who are a little bit younger and a little bit healthier, but still at all ages. We see people who are in their 90s with joint replacements these days.
Well, those joint replacement packages are a whole nother show to go through.
So what we see as evolving, though, is that the individuals coming to us for short-term rehab are less and less people who are having a simple joint replacement, and more people who either have had an illness or maybe have had an elective surgery but have so many other underlying health issues that they really need to have a bit of a more extended stay than just a short hospitalization to home.
Multiple needs, multiple things that only a rehab or a short stay there could be able to, you know, provide the right type of healing and recovery.
Exactly, and so what that means is that the acuity of the individuals coming to us for short-term rehab keeps on going up. And that means the clinical expertise of our staff has to keep on going up as well.
And I know you have an incredible education department, you know, there at Deauville that are constantly keeping, you know, folks abreast of all the new information and everything. So that's going to be a big mission. That must be one of your goals and your projects that you're going to be working on.
It is. And so one of the projects we're working on is the addition of outpatient rehab to our campus.
Okay.
Initially, really to meet the needs of the people on our campus.
Sure.
Because, for example, when our clients in our adult day need outpatient rehab, we would much prefer to provide that ourselves than to have another consultant coming in.
Sure, and again, it's their peace of mind knowing that it's associated with Deauville.
Exactly, so that's an example, I think, of a programmatic expansion that does not involve any type of major investment.
And that, any building and construction.
Exactly, that's correct.
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to education and evolving with what the needs are at the time, and finding the space, which luckily the space is already there.
Right.
But the outpatient piece, I mean, and I find that when people come home, as much as we're trying to make sure they're keeping up with the exercises, the PT and what's suggested, when we're not there, they may not be doing it. So having that kind of a bridge between the short-term rehab and being at home and getting services at home, meaning being able to go out to outpatient, is really, I mean, that must be one of the things that the strategic team looked at and said, what don't we have right now?
That's right.
So that's, I mean, that's a great direction to take. Now, and that obviously means, though, that you don't need to be a Deauville resident in order to go to the outpatient, or does it? How does that work?
Well, we don't have the outpatient
Not yet, but when
Correct.
you do.
And initially, what we want to be doing is just meeting the needs of people on our campus.
Okay.
So that means our adult day health clients, or individuals living at Brea Gardens, or
Right.
at the Saab Residence, or frankly our employees.
Sure.
We have about 550 employees.
Yes, exactly. And you know, and it's a lot of work. I mean, it's physical work. So I mean, if they need to have, you know, any sort of, you know, as we get older, shoulder surgeries, knee surgeries, things like that, and it also helps to get them back to work faster.
Well,
too,
it does,
and that's what
but
they want.
But we look at it as it would be another employee benefit.
Absolutely,
it would be very
is.
convenient.
Oh, it is.
So we're hoping that we will be having this edition of a new program in the next few months.
Oh, that's
but we're not
great.
sure exactly
Oh,
when.
that's very exciting. I love to hear the new things that are happening. So, you know, if you could say maybe one or two things that you find is truly unique about Deauville. I mean, I've already heard so many, but if there were two things that you could highlight, or one, whatever, however many you would like to choose, that you would say is very unique about Deauville.
Well, I think it's a combination of the fact that we're freestanding and we're creative.
That's a good word.
And mission driven. It's where those items come together that where we're constantly looking to see what else can we do within the realm of regulation and what could be cost effective, because we have to be able, we're a nonprofit,
Right.
we put everything back into the organization. However, the margins are tight
Absolutely.
in healthcare these days.
Yes, they are.
But we're constantly looking at what else can we do and how creatively can we think outside the box. So I think that's something that's unique, because I don't know of any other organization, nonprofit or for-profit, that has this blend of a continuum of care on the same campus, coupled with these other partnerships.
Yes, exactly.
Where we've opened up our campus to create those synergies. I think that is unique. And what we've been trying to do is to make 981 Varnum Avenue in Lowell one-stop shopping for
It
anybody
really is.
who's a senior, an older adult, and we have patients who are on the younger side, by the way. You know,
Sure.
short-term rehab.
Yes.
Actually, our youngest, I think, was a woman in her 30s who had very young children at home, who really needed to go somewhere for a short stay rehab after surgery because she just could not go home and rest.
Right.
That's an aberration. But we have lots of people in their 60s, 70s, 80s.
So when you mentioned the word, I want to say my unique word for uniqueness is innovator. So there's innovation, there's foresight, and clearly the sisters had it, and clearly you have it now as the leader.
Well, thank you. And we have also a great team of staff, and as I mentioned, we have a fabulous board of directors.
I mean, all together you make a great team. And thank you so much for coming in and sharing this about Deauville. And you are just a dynamo.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you
I
so
appreciate
much.
it.